Hey everyone, welcome to the video. Let's go over the 9-game NBA slate for today on Draftkings. But as always, before we continue, if you could just leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at Pennell16. And if you're interested in the spreadsheet about every single night for the NBA season, I put a lot of work into it every single day. I do update it all the way up until lock and afterwards. Links in the description below for my Patreon. It'll tell you what you get access to, but I'll tell you right now, you get my defense versus position chart, my cheat sheet, my core plays, my projections, the data sheet I use. Everything's color coded so you know what's good, what's bad. Like I said, all of that's available in the description below for my Patreon. And without further ado, let's get into today's slate. And up top, we got James Harden at 12,800. So recently, he's been priced in that 10K, 11K range. Hasn't been this high 12K range for a while, but despite the high price tag, we are going to lock him in. And there's a lot of reasons why, but first reason why is the main reason. Russell Westbrook will be out for rest purposes. We know how good Harden is by himself. We saw it last year. I believe he was over 13K for a while, and he was just absolutely smashing every single night. And without Westbrook on the court, he's got a 46.8% usage rate, which is absolutely insane. Usually if you see a usage rate like that, it's a guy that's only played a couple minutes this season. He's barely been on the court. James Harden, 46.8% usage rate without Russell Westbrook, and he's at 1.85 points per minute, which that's pretty much Giannis numbers. And the thing is, Harden plays like almost 40 minutes a night, and Giannis is only playing like 31 minutes a night. So James Harden is a fantastic play here, and this is also an elite game environment and matchup. You really can't ask for a better matchup or game environment, to be honest. So this is like the perfect storm is aligning for James Harden to go off. We got a 235 over/under, which I could see that even creeping up a little bit by the time games lock, and it's by far the highest total, and it's only an 8-point spread. I think if Westbrook was on the court, we'd see like a double-digit spread, or at least close to it. No, Westbrook's kind of getting that down to an 8-point spread, which means I think James Harden's going to be on the court pretty much the entire game. Should see about 40 minutes, and it's a really good matchup just from how Atlanta's defense is. I mean, they are the worst defensive team in the NBA right now, allowing the most fantasy points per game in total, and they're ranked 25th versus opposing guards as well. So it's a top 5 matchup for James Harden. This game's also going to be a track meet. Both teams are top 4 in pace of play. Houston is 3rd, while Atlanta is 4th, so it's going to be back and forth. Both teams are pretty bad on defense. I think both teams are bottom 6 defensively, so perfect storm for James Harden. Stars are aligning. I honestly, would you be surprised if he got 90 fantasy points versus Atlanta? I would not. I mean, you got 83 versus Philly, 76 versus Brooklyn. I mean, honestly, 90 points is not out of the question for James Harden versus Atlanta as long as this game stays close. So I know he's expensive, but we're locking him in. We'll figure out the value plays. You got to fit him in my opinion. Despite the high price tag, he will beat Chalky. And if I like James Harden, I have no reason to tell you guys that I like Luka or Giannis, because you're not fitting both of these guys in. I mean, it wouldn't make sense for me to tell you guys to play them. Are they great players? Yes. Is Giannis in a good matchup versus Golden State? Yes. Is Luka in a good matchup? Not really. But does it matter? No. But I'm playing James Harden. Not going to be able to fit in the other guys, so it is what it is. But Trae Young, 9,700. He's actually at an okay price tag, and we might be able to fit in James Harden and Trae Young. I have not tried to make lineups yet, nor have I ran my projections. I think I looked at a couple, but I haven't really looked through them too much. I kind of just looking at notes that I wrote, but I should say my spreadsheet. But Trae Young, 9,700, not a bad price tag, and you're also running it back in the same game, and I love this game for fantasy purposes, so it makes sense to have Trae Young. And look, if I want to play James Harden, I want him to get his absolute potential. I'd want the Hawks to be able to at least stay close. I mean, if the Rockets happen to get up by like 20 or something, maybe James Harden sits a little bit at the end of the game. Now, he typically plays his 38 minutes no matter what. If the game's close or not, he'll be on the court because we know he loves his stats, but I'd prefer for it to be a close game. And if Trae Young is going off, it would make sense. I shouldn't say it would make sense. It would be a good correlation because the game would be staying close and both guys would be going back and forth. And honestly, their ceilings are just absolutely insane here. And there goes my dog barking again at 2 a.m. I don't get it. Maybe he just likes barking when I do these videos. Maybe there's a deer in the yard. I'll pause it and check it out. Okay, so he stopped for the moment, so maybe there might be some more instances that happens. If so, I might just have to bring him on my lap, and I'll let you guys say hi to him again. But anyway, love this game. Love running it back with Trae Young. If we have the salary to do so, I absolutely love it. I think you could easily get, like, honestly, it's got like 160 point potential between the two of them. I mean, it might leave your lineup with a couple of low end stranglers, straggly guys, but with their upside, I think it might be worth it. And as of right now, I don't know how much value plays we're going to get. Obviously, things open up throughout the day with injury news, but we'll see. But Anyway, we're talking about Trae Young right now. I'm getting a little sidetracked, but I think it's because my dog's barking. It's throwing me off my game here a little bit. But it's a good matchup versus Houston. They're the 7th worst defensive team. They're also bottom 10 versus opposing guards, and Westbrook being out, I wouldn't say it really helps it too much, but shouldn't make a difference either way. But Trae Young's obviously been great this season. 1.4 points per minute, 34.5% usage rate. He's going to play huge minutes. He's got an insane ceiling. He's a high volume player. He's going to not throw the ball. He's going to shoot the ball a ton. Actually, didn't shoot the ball too much versus Denver. Only 8 for 12 from the field. Shot great though. Still had 52 fantasy points in a pretty tough matchup. But Trae Young, I think he can get 60 plus fantasy points in this game versus Houston as long as it stays close and as long as he's hitting his shots. He's going to be shooting a ton of threes. So Trae Young, he makes sense in GPPs. Not totally sure if we'll be able to get there in cash games, but because I know we're going to be playing James Harden. But if you can fit in both, I think that's definitely a good way to go. And here he comes now, so I guess he's done barking. All right, anyway. Siakam obviously can't play. Jokic, he had a monster game versus Atlanta, but I don't have a lot of interest there because I'd rather play Vucevic for 200 less. And he draws a fantastic matchup here versus Washington. And I got to say, the last game versus Brooklyn, he could not score a point to save his life. He was rebounding the ball like crazy. He had 24 rebounds. But I swear at one point, I think he had like 21 boards and 2 points. I didn't know what I was watching. The guy could not score points. I didn't understand. It was a good matchup versus Brooklyn. But at the very end of the game, he shot a 3 and had just made some free throws. Just got us that double-double. Ended up having a 48-point fantasy outing, which was pretty darn good. I think he got the fire emoji. So he was good. I mean, it was looking a little rough from the point department, but he ended up getting it done at the very end, and it all counts the same. And he gets a great matchup here versus Washington. I believe he just played them recently on New Year's versus Washington at 31 minutes, 42 fantasy points. Pretty good day. And then earlier in the season, he played Washington. I think he had like 63 fantasy points, but love the spot here versus Washington. It's a big pace-up spot. Orlando is dead last in pace of play, so they play extremely slow. They're also a pretty good defensive team. But going up against Washington, they are 7th in pace of play and one of the worst defensive teams. They're 3rd worst overall. It goes Atlanta, Cleveland, and then Washington. I mean, he's been good all season. 25% usage rate, 1.32 points per minute. Washington's 28th versus centers. I think Vucevic is a fantastic option. Now, I will say he's going to go low owned tonight because you got Trae Young at 9,700. You got James Harden at 90. Or not, I wish he was 90. At 12,800. So I can't see a lot of people getting the Vucevic, but I do think he's a very solid option versus Washington. Safe bet for about 45 plus points with upside of 60. So Vucevic, I think he's a good option, but his price is going to make him go a little bit lower owned because you're not going to be able to, if you fit in James Harden, you got 5,300 left just right off the bat, and obviously you could throw in a couple, maybe a 3K guy or a 4K guy. That's going to help you out a little bit, but it's going to be hard to fit in multiple studs. So, I mean, if you want to fade James Harden for some reason, you could go with just like a Trae Young Vucevic and run from there and save some dough. But I mean, I just think you got to play James Harden versus Atlanta. His ceiling's insane. But Vucevic, like I said, pretty good option. Brandon Ingram, no one's going to play this guy. He's an 8,800. He is a little bit overpriced here, but he's coming off a fantastic game versus Utah. He played 39 minutes, had 56 fantasy points, and also Drew Holiday is out, so it's going to bump up some usage and point per minute rates as well. And it's an elite matchup versus Chicago. He's gonna get the start of the power forward spot as always, and they are 30th versus power forwards. They suck defensively down low, so Ingram should be able to have his way. And I mean, if you want to get really weird and different in your lineups, you could play Brandon Ingram and hope for a ceiling game. But trust me, if I would just much rather pay 200 more for a guy like Vucevic, who I think is much safer. But both are excellent plays, and both are going to go lower owned. I will say Vucevic will definitely have more ownership than Brandon Ingram, but both are in really good spots. But personally, I would prefer Vucevic, but if you want to get different, you could go Brandon Ingram in an elite spot, but he is overpriced. Same can be said for Zach LaVine at 8,900, elite matchup versus New Orleans. Nice fast-paced matchup, but 8,900, I mean, you're pushing it. If he was like 7K, I would be a little bit more inclined to want to play him, but he's not typically a guy I play anyway. I don't think I've played him yet this season. And 8,900, I mean, just give me Vucevic for 100 more, much safer in my opinion. So, just really low-owned GBP plays here if you want to get different and you're building multiple lineups. Would not recommend it in single entries. Let's see, Sabonis is questioned. I think he's supposed to play, so he is questionable. We'll see if he ends up playing. If not, you could bump up guys like Miles Turner, and we'll see. It's too early to tell. I think he's going to play, though. Not totally sure yet, but Kyle Lowry, I don't love him versus Charlotte. They're awful down low, but they're okay versus guards. They're about mid-pack and a little bit above average. But Fred VanVleet's off the court, Marcus Gasol, Pascal Siakam, Norman Powell, and if you run those numbers with all of them off the court, he's got a 30% usage rate at 1.44 points per minute. Had a fantastic game last time out versus Portland, which was actually last night or tonight whenever you're watching. Well, I guess it's 1 a.m., so it's going to be last night. But he played 38 minutes, shot 23 times, and I did not know he shot the ball that many times. I was watching the game log, the game by game on NBA.com. And I swear, every time I looked at it, he was taking a shot. I didn't realize he took 23 shots. I do like the volume he put up. He shot 16 threes. That's a little surprising as well. Did not know he shot that many threes. So the volume was really nice. It was a good matchup versus Portland. Ended up getting that double-double with 10 assists, 24 points, 48 points. I think you can expect something similar. But again, for 400 more, I'd just much rather play Vucevic in a better matchup. But if you want to go with a low-owned GPP play, you could definitely look Lowry's way. All these guys are pretty much low on GPP plays because they're a little bit overpriced. I wouldn't say Lowry's overpriced. I mean, I think he's priced correctly with all the injuries on Toronto. But, I mean, Vucevic's just staring me down right at 400 more. So, I'd just find the extra salary to do so. Bradley Beal's questionable. Let's see if they updated it. Nope, just still questionable. I feel like he's just going to miss the game. I swear, all these guys that are questionable and are on bad teams, they just don't play. Like Towns, Beal, and there's another guy off the top of my head I can't remember, but I just don't think he's going to play at that point, and we'll talk about if he's out in a little bit when it comes to the Jordan McRae. We'll get to Jordan McRae in a little bit. Let's see, let's go down a little bit. Not a lot of interest in any of these guys. John Collins, if you just want exposure to this game, I totally get it. He's not going to rate out as a great point per dollar option, but he's at 1.22 points per minute on the season. He's going to get 30-plus minutes in this game as long as it's competitive. He's got a 23% usage rate. Good matchup down low versus Houston, who ranks 25th versus power forwards. It's elite in game environment. Is he a little pricey at 8K? A little bit, but I don't think he's a bad option, so I wouldn't mind looking his way in total game stack, and full game stacks, I should say. If you can fit in Trey, Collins, Harden, it'll be tough to do, but there's a lot of cheap options on Houston, so you could get the job done. I mean, if you just go with like Harden, Tucker, Gordon, Trey, Collins, it might be able to work out. I've not made a lineup yet, so we'll see, but definitely in consideration for me as of right now. Let's see, scrolling down a little bit. Serge Ibaka at 7,800, not a bad option here versus Charlotte. I mean, we all know Charlotte is terrible down low. Okay, sorry, I'm back again. That should be it for the pauses. I ended up getting my dog. He is on my lap, so we should be good to go. But Serge Ibaka, I didn't get too much into talking about him, but not my favorite play in the world. He's a little bit expensive, but I do like the matchup here versus Charlotte. I already talked about that a little bit when I talked about Kyle Lowry. They are just awful down low. They rank 29th versus power forwards, and actually 20th versus power forwards, 29th versus centers, so it's just a smash spot for him down low. We saw Domantas Sabonis have a really good game versus them last time out. And, Ibaka, I think he's a safe bet for about 35 plus fantasy points in this matchup. Without all those guys on the court, he's at 1.2 points per minute with a 26% usage rate. Not too bad. So, I mean, I wouldn't go out of my way to put him in because he's not going to grade out as a great point per dollar option, but I definitely think he's a solid 7K guy. So, Serge Ibaka, not a bad play by any means. Just won't grade out as a fantastic point per dollar option. I'd actually probably prefer Clint Capella here, just staying in that elite game stack. In my opinion, it's going to be the best game of the slate. And, I mean, Clint Capella at 7,800, not a bad price tag. Price did come up a little bit. It's the most expensive he's been, at least in the past 4 games. But it's deservedly so. He's coming off a 59-point game versus Philly, which was a much tougher matchup. Played 37 minutes, 30 real-life points, 14 boards. He's a safe bet for a double-double every single night. And, this game is head and shoulders above the rest of the slate, so I want exposure to it, and Clint Capella is not a bad way to do so, to be able to do that. And without Westbrook on the court this season, he's at 1.2 points per minute, and it's elite matchup down low versus Atlanta. I mean, we just saw Jokic drop 72 fantasy points versus them. I'm not saying he's Jokic. He does not have that ceiling that Jokic has every single night, but Capella's got a decent ceiling as well. We've seen pretty much like close to 60-point games out of him multiple times this season. We've seen multiple games of over 55 fantasy points, so he's not going to get like 72 points. He doesn't have that assist upside like Jokic does, or the usage rate. I think Capella's like at 15 if I remember correctly. Jokic is like at 25%. So he doesn't have the same upside as Jokic, but he's also not the same price. And, I mean, centers versus Atlanta have been smashing all season. They're ranked 22nd versus the position. So Clint Capella, not a bad option in my opinion. He's going to get 30-plus minutes, 1.2 points per minute. Makes a lot of sense to me in an elite matchup versus Atlanta. See, scrolling down a little bit. Let's see, we could look at Derek Favors here at 7,300. He draws a fantastic matchup versus Chicago. And I feel like a lot of big men have really good matchups on this slate. So I think power forward and center is going to be absolutely loaded. So you're just going to have to find your favorite option. But Derek Favors, I like him here versus Chicago. He's been playing pretty good recently. If you look at his recent game log, 31, 31, 45, 36, 36, 42, 37. Not too bad in the past, like 7 games. So on a nice little hot streak here, and I think he's a safe bet for a double-double versus Chicago, one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA. And his minutes have come up as well, 29, 28, 34, 35. I like those big minutes he saw in those 2 games. And 27, 30, 30. So should be good to go here. He's over a point per minute guy. He's at 1.14 points per minute, and I will say I miss when he was really cheap. This is the most expensive, second or tied for the most expensive he's been all season. Like 10 games ago, he's 4,600, 4,700, but he also wasn't seeing big minutes yet because those were one of his first games back. But I guess he deserves to be this price tag because he has been playing very well, and I do think I don't think he does. He has 40 plus fantasy point upside with upside up near 50, especially versus Chicago here, and they rank 30th versus power forwards and center, so Derek Favors should be able to eat here. Can't imagine him having too much ownership, but the matchup is fantastic, and won't grade as the best point per dollar option at this price tag, but definitely a solid mid-range play in my opinion. See, scrolling down a little bit. So I should mention, if Kemba Walker's off, you could look at all the Celtics guys. I think I passed Jason Tatum. Although Jason Tatum likes to screw me so much. But without Kemba on the court, Tatum's over 1.2 points per minute, over a 30% usage rate. You could definitely look his way. His price came down to 7,600. Good matchup versus San Antonio. The guy's been hot, cold the past 4 games. And let me guess which games I really liked him. I liked him a lot versus Atlanta. Dud. Liked him a lot versus Washington. Dud. I liked him versus Chicago, though, but I kind of came off him in that game. Then he scores 47 fantasy points. So who knows? Maybe he gets another 40-plus points, but I just really can't trust the guy. But I do like the price. I like that the price came down a little bit. But if Kemba's in, I have zero interest. But if Kemba's out, I'll have a little bit of interest at 7,600 on Jason Tatum. Although I feel like I won't be able to fit him in just based off of roster construction of what I'm kind of viewing how it's going to go. So, because I feel like we're going to have Harden, then we might try to fit in Trae Young, but that's going to be tough. And then we're going to be, scouring for some value options. So I really don't think I'm going to be in the 7K range too much. But there are some good plays here, and they should be a little bit lower owned. But let's see, Jordan McRae, I know he's around here somewhere. Yeah, he's at 6,600, so the price has come up quite a bit. DraftKings is finally catching on that Bradley Beal hasn't been playing, so they actually priced up Jordan McRae because he's been stuck in this like 5,700, 5,800 price range for a while now. But the price hike is deserved. He has been pretty good for the most part. I mean, if you look, he's had a couple of bad games, but 39, 19, 50, 27, 55, 32. He's been pretty solid. I know he had a 50-plus point game, I think, earlier in the year as well. And the upside's there. He has insane volume. He shoots the ball a ton. He is a green light. He's never going to be worried about shooting the ball. He had 24 attempts in the last game versus Boston. 15 was low versus Denver. Tougher matchup versus Boston too, but still played great. 26 attempts versus Portland. 12 versus Orlando wasn't great, but then volume tailed off a little bit, but you can tell he's getting more confident shooting the ball a ton here, especially with Bradley Beal being out. And without Beal on the court, he's got a 30% usage rate, 1.2 points per minute. Sucky matchup versus Orlando. They're a slow-paced team, good defensive team. But actually, the worst position on defense is actually versus shooting guards, which is what Jordan McRae is. So don't hate the idea of using McRae here if Beal is out, but I will say he's overpriced, and you're going to need about 30-plus points, which I might have a hard time trusting. So, again, lower owned GPP play. Really not a cash game play at 6,600. If he was below 6K, again, I'd always have interest as always. 6,600, you're pushing the envelope a little bit there. So yeah, Satoransky, it's a good matchup versus New Orleans. That bright green 30th is going to stand out to just casual players, and it's obviously a really good matchup. Coming off a really good game where he had 41 fantasy points in the last game, had 14 assists, 5 boards, 1 steal, 11 points. Didn't score a lot, but he never really scores a lot, but he can do the peripheral stats. And again, I just love the matchup here versus New Orleans. They rank 30th versus the point guard position. It's a fast-paced environment against New Orleans. Bulls don't play very fast, but it's a nice pace-up spot, I should say. I will say, though, his numbers are not that great. He only has a 16% usage rate and he's only at 0.9 points per minute, which is not that great, especially for 6,400. But he should play big minutes here. He had 40 versus Boston, 34 versus Utah, 35 versus Dallas. That's never really an issue, like the matchup as well. So you could look his way in GPPs. Wouldn't really call him a cash game play, but can't expect him to have too much ownership, and the matchup is really good. See, Aaron Gordon's fine versus Washington. If you just want exposure to Orlando going up against Washington, Jonathan Isaac's going to be out, obviously, and without him on the court, Aaron Gordon's got about a 20% usage rate and is about a point per minute guy in past 3 games. 31 minutes, 30, 34 minutes, 33, 33 minutes, 32. I think you can expect something similar. Really good matchup versus Washington, one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. I already talked about that, and I talked about Nikola Vucevic. So I don't hate him. I don't love him, but 6,200, if he's a last piece filler, I don't mind it. Now, Kevin, am I saying this right? Herter? I feel like I'm not saying it right because I think I've heard his name pronounced before, but I feel like that's not right. But Kevin Herter, I'm going to assume that's how it is. He's okay. He's actually been playing really well recently, too. 38 points, 45 points, 38, 38. Had a really bad game there, but he's been hot the past 4 games. So I do like the recent form. He's been doing good, and just in general, he's been filling the stat sheet. 8 boards, 6 boards, 7 boards, 6 boards, getting the assists, scoring a lot of points, too. 22, 26, 17, 19, playing big minutes. And this is a fantastic matchup versus Houston. They're okay versus point guards, which when I say okay, just relative to their whole team, because I think they're 18th versus point guards, and then versus shooting guards, small forwards, power forwards, they're complete trash, and then versus centers, they're okay. So, but Kevin Herter, he should have a pretty good game here. Now the price is up. I mean, he used to be in like the mid 4K to low 5K range, 6,200, pushing it a little bit for me. But this is an elite game environment. Definitely want pieces from this game. It's a really good matchup as well, so I don't hate him. Not my most favorite play in the world, but I think he's going to get 30 plus points in this game versus Houston. Let's see, scrolling down a little bit. Let's see. Marcus Smart. I want to talk about Marcus Smart. Yeah, he's 5,600 going against San Antonio. So if Kemba Walker is out, we could probably... I'll have to see how the projections go, because I assume he's going to grade out as a good value, but I'm not sure if he'd be the absolute lock because his price came up, because he was 5,100, 5,400, 5,200. Now he's at 5,600, but I still have to assume he's going to grade out as a pretty good value. So I won't say he's an absolute lock of the slate yet because I've not ran my projections with Kemba Walker being off the court. But if so, I have to imagine they're going to be pretty good. He's going to play big minutes. Yeah, past 3 games, 36, 33, 34. And like I said, the one game versus Atlanta was more of a ceiling game, and I said he was not going to get 40 points again. And then the game versus Chicago was more of a floor game, and I said he's not going to get 16 either. And I said he's probably going to be more in the middle. And he was 31 points versus Washington. I think we can expect something similar here versus San Antonio. Now, it's not that fast-paced elite matchup like Washington is, but it's still actually a pretty good individual matchup for Marcus Smart. The Spurs rank bottom 5 versus guards. I believe they're 26th, I think they're 26th versus point guards. So it's a really good matchup for Marcus Smart. Guards have been killing the Spurs all season, and with Kemba off the court, he's got over a 20% usage rate and a little bit over a point per minute. So Marcus Smart, I think he's a safe bet for about 30 plus fantasy points at 5,600. So that's not a bad play in my opinion. Scrolling down a little bit here, we're kind of running out of good plays. I mean, a lot of the good plays are a little bit expensive, but hopefully some more value plays open up throughout the day, and they usually do. We usually get some injury news that opens up some value, so I've never really worried too much about it. Although I can't predict that about the night before, because obviously a lot of the news comes out around 5 p.m., 6 p.m. You guys get the idea. But I want to talk about Rondé Hollis-Jefferson. I believe he's 4,900. I actually think he's a pretty solid play here versus Charlotte, even despite him being a little bit expensive. But I like the minutes he's been getting the past 3 games. He saw 25 minutes versus Portland, 26 versus Brooklyn, 29 versus Miami, and obviously Siakam's out, Fred VanVleet's out, Marcus Sol's out, Norman Powell's out. Just opens up a lot of minutes and usage on the court, and with all of them off the court, he's at 1.1 points per minute with a 21% usage rate. Not too bad. He's got an elite matchup down low versus Charlotte, who's 28th versus power forwards, 29th versus centers. So Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, I think he's going to get you about 25, 26, 27 minutes, and he's over a point per minute guy. Really good matchup versus Charlotte. You could certainly look his way for some salary relief. Now, I know he's not like some free player, but he can get too picky. I think he's okay. I think he'll be all right. So he's scrolling down a little bit. Gafford, I see he's got the questionable tag. Okay, so he is probable. So Wendell Carter Jr. is going to be out for this game, so he should actually see an increase in minutes. He should rather start at the center position. Did see 25 minutes in the last game versus Dallas. Ended up having 27 fantasy points, had 8 boards, 2 blocks, 13 points. This is a pretty good matchup versus New Orleans. Not as good as going up against Chicago, his own team, but good fast-paced environment versus New Orleans. New Orleans is not the best team in the league versus big men, so you could look Gafford's way. 4,800 should see close to 25, 30 minutes, and I believe without Carter on the court, I think he's at 1.02 points per minute, so he's been over a point per minute guy, so not a bad play by any means. And I like the pace-up spot, 4,800, not a bad price tag. So you could certainly look his way. I also think Thaddeus Young would be a candidate for increased minutes, although I think he's pretty expensive, actually. I think, 5,400, they gave him a big price hike, but he played really well in the last game at 28 minutes, at 11 points, 9 boards, 32 fantasy points. And unfortunately, I pivoted off of him because Markkanen was ruled in. I thought he was going to be ruled out. So I pivoted off him to Eric Paschall, and we all know how that worked out. I believe Young more than doubled his fantasy points. No, I don't think he doubled it. I think Paschall finished with 18 or 19, and Young had 32. But either way, it was a bad pivot. But it made sense to pivot off of him because Markkanen was in. But at this price point, he is overpriced. It's a good matchup versus New Orleans, but I'm not going to pay $5,400 for Thaddeus Young. Although you should see close to 30 minutes with Wendell Carter Jr. being out. Let's see. So now we're pretty much going to talk about a lot of these like secondary options on Houston, because when there's not a lot of good value plays on the slate, I typically like to go to the game that has the best, the highest over/under, fast pace, whatever, good matchup. That's going to be the Rockets, and a lot of their secondary options are cheap, and they're also going to benefit with Russell Westbrook being off the court because he's got over a 30% usage rate. He's like at 1.3 points per minute. There's a lot of numbers to go around for a lot of these secondary options, and the first guy we'll talk about, I guess, is Daniel House. He comes in at 4,500. Now, I like playing him when he's below 4K, but that really hasn't been the case lately. He's been 47, 56 was way overpriced. I don't know what DraftKings was thinking, especially versus Denver. No one played him that day, deservedly so. Then 4,800, 4,900. Then this is where I like him, 3,600, 3,900, 3,800, because that's the kind of player he is. He is not good on a point per minute basis. I think he's like at 0.6 points per minute. Not that good at all, but with Westbrook off the court, I'm interested. He's still at like 0.6, 0.7 points per minute with him off the court, which isn't great, but it's an elite matchup versus Atlanta. Should put up a couple more threes, should be able to shoot the ball a little bit more. Minutes should be a little bit more secure. I mean, the matchup's great. You really can't ask for a much better matchup, like the game environment. Daniel has 4,500. Don't mind taking a shot. You just got to hope he gets you over about, well, at 4,500, you're kind of hoping for 20 points, but the guy's got upside. We've seen it before. He had 33 points versus New Orleans. Maybe we can catch 30 points versus Golden State on Christmas. 23 versus the Clippers, but Westbrook's off the court, so obviously you should see a bump. So don't hate Daniel House, don't love him either. You could also look at Austin Rivers. You'll see a little bit more minutes. Don't love playing Austin Rivers, though. I believe Westbrook didn't play in the game versus New Orleans, I believe. 29 minutes, 22 fantasy points. You could probably expect something similar. It's a really good matchup versus Atlanta, though, but I just hate playing Austin Rivers. And they did price him up. All these guys are priced up a little bit because we had news that Russell Westbrook wasn't going to play before these salaries were released. So 4,500, not too bad. I'd rather play Daniel House, in my opinion. The minutes should be more secure for Daniel House. And Austin Rivers really is not that good on a point per minute basis. He's pretty much the same as Daniel House, and I think Daniel House is going to get probably more minutes. So it would make more sense to want to play Daniel House over Austin Rivers. You also look at Eric Gordon. I actually prefer him the best. He's actually a little bit cheaper too at 4,400, only 100 cheaper, but still cheaper nonetheless. And his minutes have been nice the past 4 games, 30, 22, 26, 30. Also no Russell Westbrook on the court, so it's going to be a big thing here, and I would expect him to probably get the start. If he doesn't get the start, he'll at least come off the bench, be the sixth man, but if he does the start, I still think he's a really good option. Either way, I mean, he should play close to 30 minutes. And obviously, this is going to be an elite game environment, and the guy's going to shoot a lot of threes. We know he likes to shoot threes. He shot 10 in the last game versus Philly, then 5, 7, 7. Going to put up a lot of shots, probably get double-digit shots here, so I do like the expected volume, and he's a pretty good player. We know that. I like the game environment. It's a really good matchup. With Westbrook off the court, he's at 0.7 points per minute, which isn't great, but only 4,400 in an elite matchup versus Atlanta. So Eric Gordon would make sense. I think he's probably one of the best value options on the slate as of right now. That's really about it. You could look PJ Tucker's way. I think he's 4K, but the guy has been absolutely awful. Talk about a cold streak. 8 points, 15, 18, 11, 19. He's been awful since Christmas, really. I mean, guy's been bad. He's shown upside games before. He had 30 versus Sacramento, 34 versus the Clippers. Earlier in the season, when I played him one game, I think he had 45 fantasy points. I don't remember when that was exactly, but I think it was like one of the first week or two of the season. But he's been bad. Now he's playing huge minutes, but he's not shooting the ball. The past 2 games he played 34 minutes and 37 minutes. 1 attempt in both games. That's it. And they were both 3-pointers. That's it. The guy just sits in the corner and maybe he'll shoot a corner 3. That's about it. He doesn't really do anything. He gets rebounds and maybe an assist or 2, or maybe if we're lucky, a block or a steal, but he's just not been good. With Westbrook off the court, he has an 8% usage rate. Even with Westbrook off the court, he's the ball's never really in his hands. You just kind of hope. You just kind of gotta hope that it ends up in his hands by some miracle. And he's only at 0.5 points per minute. These are ugly numbers, but he's gonna play like 40 minutes in this game, so maybe he lucks his way into 20 points and at 4K. I will take it. But, man, it's just, he's been so bad. I hate the recent form he's in. He's just not scoring. He's not shooting the ball. I mean, if he takes like 7 to 10 shots, I think he'll get there in value. But if he's not going to shoot the ball, I mean, we could look at another 10-point outing, which is not going to get the job done at 4K. But, Atlanta, that's a really good matchup. They're 29th versus power forwards. I don't mind it. 4K is not a bad play. And I think I skipped Josh Hart. I just wanted to talk about the Rockets guy. But Josh Hart's at 4,200, and he should draw the start again with Drew Holiday being out. He's already ruled out. And I will say Hart got into some early foul trouble, and he actually finished with some foul trouble at 5 personal fouls. But I believe in the first couple minutes, he ended up with 2 fouls. Sat most of the first. Etwan Moore got some extended run, so he didn't see a full complement of minutes. I think he would have got 30+. And I don't think he's a bad play. The guy's got upside, and it's not a great matchup versus Chicago as a guard/forward, as they're really good versus guards. They're okay versus small forwards. I think he's going to get the start of the shooting guard spot. Well, either way, I think he's going to be fine. The price is what gets me there at 4,200. If he's going to see 30+ minutes without Drew Holiday on the court, he's at 0.9 points per minute. That's actually pretty solid. So we could look Josh Hart's way. I think he only has like a 15% usage rate, though, which isn't great. But 0.9 points per minute, if you're going to be 30+ minutes, I'll take it at 4,200. He's a pretty strong value option as of right now. And as of right now, that's his lowest I will go. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple more guys I might be missing off the top of my head, but no one that really stands out to me too much. No locks by any means. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. Hope this video was helpful. If it was, remember to leave a like. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter, Pennell 16. Check out my spreadsheets if you are interested. And I'll see you guys in the next video.